City Baseball, Past, Present, and Future. My name is Ralph Tycho. My co-hosts are Alan Blumkin from New York and Marty Rose from Florida. Now, how does that sound, Marty Rose, New Floridian?
Yeah, it sounds hot to me.
It sounds hot.
95 degrees type of hot, yeah.
Well, not
yet.
just 95 degrees. The humidity, I'm sure, plays a part in it.
Yeah, well, they tell me by the time August comes, the neighbors are telling me you don't even want to open your door.
Okay. Well, at least they give you something to look forward to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How about you, Alan, in New York? How's the weather?
75 up here, but I can relate to what Marty is saying because my parents lived for the last 20-odd years in Dallas, which during the summer could get extremely hot.
Dallas, Texas, you're talking?
Dallas, Texas, yeah.
What, just out of curiosity, what moved them there?
My father had to take a business up here. It didn't do well. In 1972, he had to take a job selling, and they gave him a choice of Atlanta or Dallas. So he took Dallas. So I used to go down there every year when they were alive for a visit. My father passed in 89, and my mother passed at the beginning of 2000. And after my father passed, every year after the Sabre Conference, National Conference, I would go down there for a week just to unwind.
Right. Well,
it got very hot there at times, and if you went down there in March or April, when you have allergies like I do, you couldn't go out. And there were times, I remember one particular time, I was down there in 1986 in April, and I was driving with a friend of mine to the Arlington Stadium. Not the one now, the old one, the old minor league park. And there was a thunderstorm that was so hard that I had to go off the highway because I couldn't see anything. We got there at 2 o'clock. The game was started at 3, and by 5 o'clock you never would have known it rained at all.
Right. That's how Florida is.
Yeah, that's the way it was now. Yeah.
Are you getting that too, rain in late afternoon or middle afternoon?
I'm getting that here, I'll tell you that. Yeah. Seems like almost the same time every day. Very strange. You know,
about
clouds
3:30,
up,
4 o'clock.
Thunderstorm goes by, and then that's it. It's gone. Yeah. Very strange.
Yeah. Well, that's your weather report, Uncle Weatherby. Remember Uncle Weatherby when we
were
kids, guy?
Tex Antoine. Yeah, oh, sure, yeah.
Tex Antoine. Okay.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
So that,
wow.
That's a lot of years ago. It was only 15 minutes.
Yes, he was. But he had made the weather interesting.
Yeah.
Cumulus clouds. Let's talk a little Mets-Pirates, because in my estimation, this is the upcoming series between the Mets and the Pirates. For both teams, really, is very, very key. Can these teams beat each other? Because when it comes down to it, for the wild card, it's either going to be the Mets, the Pirates, the Cardinals. I don't think the Cubs can be caught, and I really don't think Washington can be caught either.
I don't think a wild card is going to come out of the National League West either.
Right.
That's the Giants are too good for all the rest of them there, and the others are pretty mediocre.
Right. Getting off the subject a little bit, if you want to talk about the Giants, there are rumors that they may acquire from Milwaukee Braun.
Yes, and I know there are a lot of people that are not through with that because of Braun's admitted PED use.
Right. But then again, he's come back very, very strong in the last couple of years.
And the Brewers have always been a seller in recent years.
Yeah. So I'm wondering about that. As far as the Mets concerned with Milwaukee, who seem to be out of it, the catcher,
LaCroix.
LaCroix.
Yeah.
LaCroix. what do you guys think about him? And do you think D'Arnaud will be all right eventually? He seems to be brittle.
He's coming back on Tuesday, D'Arnaud.
Okay.
He's gonna rehab this weekend, and they're activating him on Tuesday. But all that's gonna do is put another 260, 270 hitter in the lineup, and weaken the catching position because this guy can't throw anybody out ever.
Right. How long do you think it'll take him to go on the DL again?
That's true too. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't stay on the field more than like a month at a time, pretty much. So,
and at the same time, Rivera is so solid behind the plate and hits nothing.
It's nothing. No.
Yeah.
I heard today that since that is Milwaukee that we'd have to deal with, that they were not pleased last year when they canceled the Carlos Gomez deal. So they may not be that interested in dealing with the Mets at all because of that. So that was mentioned today.
Point of view.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back how well Wilmer Flores is doing right now, and what a lifesaver he's been. And he was directly involved in that. He was all but going.
Right.
Brian in the infield didn't want to go, and so sometimes the best deals are the deals not made. But they checked him out. He had a bad hip, so I don't think Milwaukee can complain too much about.
In the 1950s, you had Wes Rostrom and Jim Hegan, neither of whom could hit very much, but they were so good defensively that they were able to play regularly for years.
Right. Westrom especially was a great defensive catcher for the guys.
He was also
couldn't hit it all.
He walked an awful lot too, so he was very good at clearing the eighth spot for the pitcher to bat, and so the pitcher would have to lead off the next inning. Right.
But and then there was Ray Cott, who just about beat him out towards the end.
Yeah.
But I also heard today that David Wright is considering season-ending neck surgery. So that's another situation.
Wow.
And this lineup that they're putting out there every day, they keep putting this lineup out there. They're going to blow the wild card, too. I mean, St. Louis could beat them out. I mean, seriously, they could be so buried by the All-Star break that, it gets to a point where, I hate to use this word, but unwatchable. After a while, they become
not interesting.
Unwatchable.
But I have to ask you a question, Mert. You're the GM, and you get four regulars go down within a 3-week period.
I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. I mean, especially now, there's nothing that they can do. I mean, you got to wait till close to the trading deadline before anybody wants to make any moves. Obviously,
right?
But this lineup, like Lagares was supposed to play today, he comes up with some kind of dental problem, so he's out of the lineup, and Diaz is in there. It's the 5th inning, and they don't have one hit yet in this game against the kid making his second major league start. Are you kidding me? It's just pathetic. Honest to God.
Yeah.
And they saw this kid last week.
Who is pitching? Alan, and tell us something about it. You're a big Pirate guy.
Garrett Cole was disabled today. He went on the DL today with tightness in his triceps, and they're using this kid, Jameson Talion, who they brought up from Indianapolis, and he was the second pick in the 2010 draft overall behind Bryce Harper and ahead of Manny Machado on the Orioles.
So he already had Tommy John, right?
Yeah, he already had Tommy John.
Yeah, so he's back from that already.
Has a bad thumb. Is playing with a bad thumb and can't hit for power. They lost Savelli for 2 months with a broken bone in his hand, and Chris Stewart.
McCutcheon's hitting .241. What's with him?
Yeah, he can't.
He's a slow start. When the weather gets hot, McCutcheon gets hot.
Yeah, he's playing with a bad thumb, and I posted the other day in the Pirate chat group on mine. I see Roy Campanella in 1954, because between his 2 MVP years back then, he had in '54 he had a very bad hand, and he hit .207. Plus, they've got Chris Stewart is the starting catcher. They got a 35-year-old minor league backup. Stewart is a 200 hitter, and their pitching, especially their secondary pitching, is they're all members of the Arson squad. And
this sounds like two teams that should be playing each other.
Exactly. Some of them Pirate fans suggested they trade Neese and Locke and Nicasio. And I said, what would they get for them? Nothing. These guys are not marketable. And they traded for 3 guys who were just as bad. Yeah.
So what do you guys think about the catcher from Milwaukee? Aside that they may not trade with the Mets, and you really can't blame them from that standpoint. It becomes personal.
Yeah, I think he'd be a good move. He's got, although I don't know if Milwaukee would move him because they've got I believe a team option on him for very little money for next year. So, and then he's a free agent at the end of next year. So they're getting they have a good player, and they still have him for another year. But of course, if they could get younger, good young prospects, that's another story, because obviously they're going nowhere this year. So.
Well, I'm afraid the Pirates are going to trade Mark Melanson, who's their closer, and is one of the 2 or 3 pitchers on that staff that has anything. And he's in his, next to final years, like the situation with Neil Walker last year. And they may try to, if they're out of it, they may try to trade him somewhere for prospects. But the Pirates traditionally don't do rentals.
Both teams, the Mets and the Pirates, are really floundering right now.
Yeah.
And for good reason. But you know what? They're both 5-6 games over 500.
Pirates are 1 game over. 2 weeks ago they were.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, they just got swept.
They had the 3 brutal losses. Last Sunday they lost to the Angels. They blew a lead to the Angels. Then that Wednesday night show against the Mets, and then they had to fly out to Denver to make up a game that had been postponed earlier. And then they come back and play a game with the Cardinals Friday night. The starting pitcher goes 7. They bring in they're leading 2-0. They bring in Feliz in the 8th. He gives up 3 runs right away. They tie the game up in the 9th. In the top of the 12th, they bring in Nicasio. He strikes out the first 2 guys. Then he walks the next guy. The Cardinals have this player named Diaz. Now, he's batting 8th. And they walk this guy intentionally. I never heard in all the years I've been watching of a team walking a batter intentionally with a runner on first and 2 out. But it brings up the pitcher spot. They send up Wainwright. He gets a double, scores 2 runs, and by the time the inning was over, the Cardinals had 6 runs, and the Pirates just went to sleep and they started Nice Sunday. That game was on.
That was heartbreaking for the Mets. You must have enjoyed that, Alan. I thought of you. You were having a good day that day.
Then he gives up 3 runs and throwing batting practice. In the 3rd inning, it's 4-0 already. I said, I turned it off. Couldn't watch anymore. And I don't. Last year they won 98.
The lament of a baseball fan.
They won 98.
Did either of you guys, Mert, did you ever play fantasy baseball other than your baseball is only dull to people with dull minds?
That's right, exactly.
That was great. That was an office pool that we had years ago. But they had to stop that when when they started with the wild card business and all, and they had to stop it because you could only pick so far. You couldn't pick the playoffs because you didn't know who was going to be in it at the beginning of the season, So they did stop that. But no, I never played fantasy baseball.
I did for a number of years, and it has its upsides and downsides. It gives you the feeling of being in control a little bit of, if the general manager of your team that you follow isn't doing what you want, well, you go ahead and see how you can do that kind of thing. See how easy it is. And it isn't all that easy.
No, well, I didn't have the time. You got to really have a lot of time on your hands to do that because you want to do it right. Yeah. And I was involved in 12-hour days with commuting and working. When you come home from a 12-hour day, you don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah, I have a close friend of mine played for years in a National League exclusive, and one year there was some interleague trade, and they were getting calls at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. They all screamed that they had open spaces for this guy coming over from the American League. I think it was Tom Brunansky. This is how far back this goes. And from what he told me, wars have been started for less reasons. And you have to know, he had one guy who was trying to get off his team. The guy would get hurt all the time, and just as soon as he was ready to get rid of this guy, somebody else would get off on the disabled list, and he had to keep him. It just, if you're up at that point, this is before the internet, waiting for box scores from San Diego at 2 o'clock in the morning. See how you guys do. I mean, to me, it was never worth the aggravation. Well,
sometimes, as with managing, baseball managers will tell you that the losses the wins never outweigh the losses.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
Feel worse than the wins feel, and I can remember I had Schmaltz as a pitcher, and one day I'm just tuning in early to see how he's doing. He lasted a third of an inning, and he gave up 6 earned runs in a third of an inning. And I call it, you can't imagine what that means to a fantasy league. You just you're a loser. For a long time.
I had a similar thing in the 70s. I used to pick with this one guy for over a number of categories, and one of them was pitching wins. In 1974, I had Seaver and Palmer. Seaver won 11, and Palmer won 7. And of course, I lost that one. By a lot. But I had the two worst. Each had Seaver had his worst year up until that one year he had with the Reds, and Palmer that was the only bad year he had in a string of 20-game seasons. So I happened to find them.
Well, I had George Brett go.
I used to gamble on games. I always remembered the football games in particular. I always remembered the losses much more than the wins.
Right.
I stopped that about 30 years ago. Yeah.
Well, I had George Brett go 0 for 34 for me.
Yeah.
Had an 0 for 34 streak for
me. That's possible? Oh, my God.
Yeah, for George Brett, you would think it would be impossible.
Yeah, really.
But no, it really wasn't. And I traded. I always thought it was a good idea to trade. If you're going to make a trade for 2 superstars, trade for the position player and get rid of the pitcher. All things being equal, with that idea, you would think that you could predict what a position player is going to give you next year better than you can a pitcher. So the year that I traded Glavine for Darryl Strawberry when he was with the Dodgers, on opening day he got busted for drugs and was suspended for whatever. Opening day, I gave up Glavine to get him. So that's the experience of fantasy baseball, rotisserie league baseball. Call it what you want. It has its ups and downs, but what's really crazy is when say the Mets are playing and your guy is going up against the Mets or vice versa, that kind of thing. Then you stop to think, this is ruining the baseball experience.
Well, I think
tell you something else ruining the baseball experience, guys, and that's
Ralph, let me say one.
The delays in getting the call right, and I'm all for getting the call right. Love the idea that they're working on that. Love the idea that technology has not quite caught up. If technology were in a position where they can make these decisions instantaneously, where you wait a few seconds, that's fine. Where the umpires have earplugs, so they don't have to go and put the headsets on, delay the game, one thing. But it's getting very arduous to listen sometimes.
They gotta have somebody in each ballpark just there looking at the monitor like the guys on TV. They're telling you 10 seconds later whether the guy's safe or out. Normally.
Right.
A lot of times you got to look at it, a few times. But then again,
that's the case,
you can't
if you've
tell
got
after
to look at it a few times, the call should stand.
Exactly right. Exactly right. If you got to look at it more than 2 or 3 times, just let it go. Go back to the original call. It's insane.
Yesterday, Mike Francesa, who works on WFAN here, had Manfred, the commissioner, on. And he didn't throw all puffballs. But what Manfred said, I could have written out, or any halfway decent baseball fan could have written out the responses. And when Francesa asked Manfred about the replay, he said that the owners say that it would take a couple of years to work all the kinks out. But he defended it, and he also defended the nonsense about the All-Star game determining the home field for the World Series. I mean, his responses were so bland and dry that, as I said, any baseball fan who has any interest in this game could have written out what he was going to say.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100% that the All-Star game thing is a fiasco. But when you go back to another one of the things that came into being under Selig's reign, if you will, and it was a reign, was the wild card. Got to admit, if you got 30 teams, it helps to have some interest other than, especially in years when you got divisions decided very, very quickly. Wild card has been a good thing for baseball. Never thought I'd say that, being a traditionalist. Yeah. But
you're right.
Well, I hate is the scheduling.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
There's no way the Pirates, during the middle of a homestand last week, after playing a night game against the Mets Wednesday, having to fly out to Denver to make up a game that had been postponed a month ago, which should never have been scheduled in Denver in the first place at that time of year.
Yep.
And
I finally figured out a way to make some money betting on baseball.
Yeah, you have these one trip in.
Just what you're talking about. When these teams have to travel and play without a day off, sometimes even in the daytime, with no amphetamines, they don't have a chance.
Right. Pirates went out there and Locke gave up 11 runs in 4 innings. But just the idea of
you got the computer, and you could, with the computer's help, you ought to be able to put the dates available and the information in there to start the season with games played in where you have a chance where it's not going to be 32 degrees. So why don't you start the season in Miami rather than in New York?
Well, in 1982, the first week of the season in the Northeast and Midwest was wiped out by snow. Okay. And they had Western teams playing Western teams and Dome teams playing Dome teams. So in 1983, they opened the season, and they had, Southern teams and Western teams and Dome teams hosting everybody else. Nothing happened, so in 1984, they went back to the old way. The Yankees, the other league, had to make a one-day trip to Detroit to make up a Sunday night game that was scheduled the first weekend of the season in Detroit, where it's, as you said, 32 degrees at that point.
Right.
At the Pirates and Mets, because I used to go to every Pirate game at Shea Stadium for years. Most of the time, the Pirates were up and the Mets were down, or the Mets were up and the Pirates were down. Very rarely were they on the same plateau. But
like the Giants and
18 times
exactly.
a year, and it's a rivalry. It was a rivalry. And now with this setup, now they play 6 or 7 times. And as I posted to you the last time, I think Marty probably saw that outside of the 6 games with the Mets that end for the Pirates on Thursday, the Mets can win every game for the rest of the season, as far as I'm concerned, because they don't play each other anymore.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, the good thing is that you can follow 2 teams and get the best of all worlds from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And root for 2 teams.
Yeah, I root for the Mets to beat the Cardinals and the Cubs, obviously.
Right.
When I play them, yeah.
Well, you would have to say the Cardinals, obviously, too, especially this year.
Yeah, I just mentioned them also. Yeah, they're amazing. They let guys walk away and they fill holes like it's there's no
I'll
end.
say in our lifetime, Mert and I are the same age, and I can't remember, Mert, how few times the Cardinals have really been down over the years for an extended period. Is that not the greatest franchise? If you were going to pick a team,
could very well be.
Yeah,
they were down
always
before.
They
were down
always
for a couple years in the early to mid '50s, but most of the time that they've been the best franchise in the National League. Yeah.
Even in the early '50s, they had Musial, and they were interesting as hell, and a storied past, an incredibly storied past. The Guest House Gang, Guest House Kids, whatever the hell it was, all that stuff, and Branch Rickey, and but we're Met fans. And once you're a Met fan. All right, Mert, we're going to go back in memory lane. Do you remember the first time you and I were walking? It was the first exhibition game the Mets and Yankees ever played. Do you remember?
Oh, you mean the Mays Trophy games?
No, it was spring training.
Oh, spring training. Wow.
Right.
Do I remember that? No.
I remember you and I walking towards Junction Boulevard to the park up by where the bear lived. And we were going to play softball or something. We had the radio on, and Rod Keneal got a base hit to win the first exhibition game for the Mets.
Wow.
And I could remember that, yet I can't remember where the hell I left my keys.
Gotcha. Yeah, it must have been the PS 149 schoolyard.
Yeah,
I play softball there sometimes.
Everybody's memory is the same. You remember all this stuff when you were a kid because nothing got in the way.
I also have a bad memory. I've flashed on a very bad memory of that 149 schoolyard playing softball. Remember, Mert? You do.
Do I remember? Yeah, I remember. I still got the scar.
Some kid. Thank God it wasn't me, but I think you got caught with a bat. Caught in the head.
Yeah, I was on deck, and unfortunately for me, instead of standing behind the the dugout fence, I was standing close to home plate there, up against the fence, and when the guy swung, he let the bat out of his hand and hit me in the head. So, and DeGrom just gave up
your forehead, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Yeah, right in the head. Yeah, and they took me to the hospital. I got stitches. I still have the scar there. Yeah.
Wow.
concussion.
Yeah,
that was intense.
We played
yeah, that was.
You had to hit them straight because there were certain people, if you hit the ball onto their lawn, they would get extremely annoyed, to say the least. They wouldn't give the ball back. So we always had to have a supply of the old Spaldings, just in case we had to lose a ball on somebody's lawn.
Well, this was losing Mert. This was
that was quite a day.
Yeah.
I remember
we went over to that park a lot. They played a lot.
I was helped over to the park house, and the guy's the parkie is filling out the accident report. And how do you spell gash?
G-A-S-H.
I mean, these guys weren't, road scholars.
That's what he said to you?
Park house. How do you spell? Yeah, he's filling out the accident report. How do you spell gash? Mercy.
That guy has a job, right? That guy got a job.
Yeah, right.
Although that would have been the perfect job for me, being a parkie. I mean, hanging in the schoolyard. That's the only thing I ever did well. My whole life.
By info, the Pirates are leading 2-0 in the top of the sixth. The Mets don't have a hit through the first 5 innings.
Yeah, no hits yet, right? Yeah, DeGrom just gave up a 2-run homer, so he's either going to get a loss or a no decision tonight.
Kang, yeah. Well, when he had that game against the Marlins, I think it was, where Familia gave up the 4 runs in the top of the ninth and deprived Grom of a win. That was terrible.
So
they have a rule about, briefly and effectively rule about pitchers getting wins, but they never enforce that. I can never remember that ever being enforced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
they're not getting early leads at all, which there always seems they have to be coming back, and if this happens, that happens, you get the winning run to the plate or the tying run here or there.
There's just no offense. They're last in runs scored in the major leagues, and they're third in home runs, but they're last in runs scored. So
the Pirates have the opposite problem. They are very good at blowing leads. No lead is ever safe with them. Yeah.
Well, who are we talking about? You're talking about getting rid of the closer with that, or is it pitchers that lead up to the closers?
The pitchers that lead up to the closers are brutal, and they're on the shuttle from Pittsburgh to Indianapolis, and they have this guy Caminero, who's been absolutely brutal. The guy can throw 100 miles an hour, but he has absolutely no movement on the ball. They sent him down to AAA, got clobbered down there, and somebody got hurt, so they brought him back up. It's just it's like one of those
revolving door
things in the airports. Yeah,
right, a revolving door.
Revolving door, yeah, and these guys are all interchangeable.
Right.
And the ones that they had, produced like last year, like Bastato and Blanton, they let them walk away because the management thinks that these types of guys are interchangeable, and they're not.
Okay. Let's talk about Canseco, Mert, and Alan. Not Canseco, for crying out loud, Cespedes. I've only done that 30 times, so I'm sure by the 31st time I'm going to get this down. But do you think the Mets should sign him? I had a very interesting conversation with a very well-informed fella on the Mets Talk today, a fellow by the name of Neves, who I'd really like to get to know because he's very articulate. And he tells me, he says, brought up something interesting, that Canseco's physical skills, his tools, really are separate and distinct from his lack of instincts, baseball instincts. And my thing is, well, he did win a Gold Glove in Detroit, and his fielding skills have been hampered by going back and forth between center and left since he got called up with the A's, since he signed originally with the A's. When he signed with the A's, they had Coco Crisp playing center, and Cespedes was really faster. I mean, a much better arm. Coco Crisp refused to go over to play left. He had the big contract, and so they put Canseco in left. Actually, that was the first time he was a left fielder. Started out in Cuba as a center fielder. So I think they'd mess with him, and I think once he becomes a full-time left fielder and they're not sending him back and forth, his fielding will improve dramatically.
You know, if Lagares was playing, Lagares had some kind of dental problem. Hopefully that's taken care of today, so he should be back tomorrow. And then Cespedes will go back to left field because Conforto's out for a few days. He's got a strained cartilage in his left wrist, and he took a cortisone shot today. So, you know, he's probably out for at least this series. So if Lagares comes back...
That's bothering him for a while because he's really been slumping. His first...
Yeah, probably. Okay. Yeah, because he's been very bad. Very bad.
Yeah.
The whole month of... but the last month, April, he was good. May, he was terrible, really. Really bad.
I wish the Mets were a little more transparent with what's going on injury-wise overall, not just him, but you're always finding things out, you know, a year later somebody writes a book type thing. You know, you don't get what you need to get. But
Harris has been shitting now. So,
okay.
But DeGrom just threw some stuff in the dugout. He's pissed. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, they got no hits, and he just gave up a 2-run homer, and he's out of the game. So again, the guy's got he's pitched as much as anybody else, and he's got 4 decisions. So, what, 5 decisions on the year? What, 4? I think he's got 3 and 1. He's got like a bunch of no decisions.
Yeah.
So, unbelievable.
A lot of it is, as I said, it's criminal. When they, like that game against the Marlins, and for me, they gave up the 4 runs in the ninth, and then got the vulture win when Granderson had a home run in the bottom of the ninth.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And, years ago, the Dodgers had a relief pitcher named Phil Regan, who was nicknamed the Vulture because he picked up a lot of wins like that, blowing leads, and, being around when they have to get the decision. It's something that, as I said, they have a rule on the books for briefly and effectively. It means the official scorer can award the decision to whoever he wants. It's never done. It's never been used that I can remember.
Your catcher just got hit with a bat.
Murder.
Backup catcher. He got creamed in the backswing by Lagares.
I don't know if it's the jinx of comfortably zoned, but the day before, I was talking to Wayne Unger on a show that we were doing, and I confused Gary Shandling with somebody else, and the next day Gary Shandling died.
Oh, God.
Wayne will tell you, I don't know what it is, but I got the wrong name. Who was I talking? It's a player with a name that was like Shandling, and I can.
So we'll see if Canseco
was just talking about getting hit with a bat, and all of a sudden, I'll tell you, the internet is a lot stronger than we thought it was originally. There's a lot more power. That's why Gore named it the Internets. I think that's when he invented it.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. Years ago, I had to go with a friend of mine somewhere, and the Mets were playing the Cardinals in an exhibition game, and my friend asked me, when are we going to leave? I said, just as soon as Ralph Kiner calls Kurt Flood. So comes up to bat, and of course, Kiner calls him Curt Flood right away, and we left.
You left. Mert, I want to ask you because Bob Murphy, has so much respect from the current Met broadcasters, from Met fans all through the years. I was out here. I was out of touch. We didn't have the internet all these years, so I didn't really get to hear whether or not Bob Murphy improved appreciably from when he started out as the Met announcers. And we were spoiled. We had the Yankee announcers. We had the Dodger announcers. We had Red Barber and all these guys, Mel Allen, Rizzuto. And all of a sudden we get the three guys who were somewhat not as good at the time. Did Murphy get really better, or he just became a Met guy? They love him because, which is okay too. I never thought that Harry Carey was a particularly great announcer. He was a character, a beloved Cardinal Cub stuff. Was it like that with Murphy, or were his skills, his pure skills as an announcer, weren't there early on? Were they developed?
Yeah, he got better. No, he did, because I guess once you're around so long, you just get more comfortable in your surroundings and the people you're working with. And he did. He definitely got better. Yeah, and I guess after a while, people just have an attachment to you. Those guys were there for many, many years.
All three of them.
Him and Kiner were there for a long, long time. And luckily for them,
was there for a long time before he left.
He
became the Giant announcer for a while.
Who did?
Did Lindsey Nelson.
Oh, Lindsey, yeah. But luckily for Murphy and Kiner, they had Lindsey Nelson there in the beginning, who was a professional announcer for years already. But Murphy got better, and Kiner was just always Kiner. He always had a lot of good stories, and he was funny. What can you say? But he knew his stuff. You can't say he didn't know his stuff.
Alan, you just mentioned Rizzuto, who before he became kind of a caricature of himself at the end, was a terrific announcer in the late 50s and what have you.
Yeah, he was.
I'm on a site called on Facebook called Broadcasting Back in the Day. They put up the guy who runs it, the guy named Mike Hanowitz, puts up things about all the old broadcasters, and the only one I don't put likes on is Harry Carey. Because I thought he was a blowhard, and he got famous with the Cubs, but he announced for the Cardinals for 30 years. And if you read the opening chapters of Jim Brosnan's book, Long Season, when Brosnan was with the Cardinals, every player to a man hated Carey's guts.
I don't remember reading that, but I do remember reading those two great books, Long Season and Interface. They were terrific.
Yeah.
Before Boughton's book, and it was great literature right there. They hated. That's interesting that they hated
his guts. Yeah, they really hated.
What was Bob Prince like, Alan?
Bob Prince was the ultimate homer.
Oh my God!
Because I used to listen to their games in the early '60s on WWVA, which is
in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Wheeling, West Virginia, when I was here, because KDKA is on 1020 in New York, and that couldn't be picked up in New York because it was surrounded by WINS at 1010 and the radio station on 1050, which has undergone a million changes. So I found their games on when I was home for the summer on WWVA in Wheeling, West Virginia. And he was all we this and we that. They'd be losing by 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th. And he'd say, all we need is 2 bloops and a blast.
Yeah,
and,
he would root. He was just
root, and he gave nicknames to all the players. Like Bill Verdon was the Quail, and Bob Skinner was the Dog, and Don Hoke was the Tiger. And he'd give nicknames to all the players. And when they tried to, ABC tried to hire him for television, and he did some games nationally on television. He couldn't make the transition.
Yeah, I remember. We used to be able to pick up that station. In New York.
Was great for picking up everything but West Coast games when I was there.
Because I remember hearing him root. Schofield and Clemente were playing.
Schofield.
And he came up and he said, "We need a bloop and a blast. Come on, Ducky." And he gets a single. We got the bloop. We need the blast. Come on, Roberto. That much rooting. We weren't used to that kind of stuff in New York.
The way Lindsey Nelson did. But Lindsey Nelson, I knew from because he was a very big college football announcer prior to his coming.
Notre Dame. I think he did a lot of Notre Dame games.
And Murphy did announcing with Kurt Gowdy on the Red Sox. And then he went to Baltimore, and that's where he came to the Mets from the Orioles.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought
because one of the old Red Sox yearbooks I had laying around had from the early 50s had Kurt Gowdy and it says capable associate Bob Murphy. So Murphy had a lot of experience by the time he came to the Mets.
Yeah, didn't know about the Baltimore experience at all.
Yeah, and then they made him into strictly radio and kind of strictly into TV in the later years.
That transition from radio to television, a lot of guys just don't know when to shut up.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
And that's the key to it on television. Just let the crowd, it's a visual. And
now, I rate announcers on how infrequently they annoy me. And a lot of them annoy me quite a bit. And, basically, I think they're told to talk down to people watching games like they've never seen a game before. And you're right. And McCarver, I got to dislike him because he would make a point and he'd harp on it for about an hour and a half before letting it go. And and especially when you get into college basketball games, that this past season, when they put together Brent Musburg with Dick Vitale, to me that was a no watch.
Yeah,
they were impossible.
Turn down.
And I asked friends of mine who are around my age, did you ever watch a game of any sort because somebody in particular was doing the announcing? And the answer, of course, was no.
No, of course not. Yeah,
of course not. They paid.
You know how many people turned in to see Howard Cosell?
Oh, they paid
just idiots. They hated
fortunes. And nobody. All they can do is, to me, for the most part, is take away from the game. And I much prefer Gary Cohen and Nita Darling or Keith Hernandez to any of the Yankee announcers on Yes. I mean,
I'm a radio guy, and I really can't find much fault with Howie and Josh.
No, neither compare them to. They're great compared to John Sterling, who's 79 years old and can't see, and Susan Waldman on the Yankees.
I didn't know Sterling was that old, and yeah. Well, I do think they work well together, though.
Oh, yeah, but they're almost impossible to listen to.
But Sterling was just into his own shtick.
Or a hell of a lot easier to listen.
He doesn't tell you what's going on the field.
No,
he just
tells
you, he just has to keep repeating all his home run calls. They're all the same. You don't know if it's a line drive or you don't know what it is. It's always high and far. No matter what.
And caught at the fence. He's done that a number of times.
Yeah. Or foul, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But, I can go on forever about certain announcers that in all sports. I just think they take away from the experience of watching the game rather than adding to it. I guess
all-time favorite announcer, Alan.
Old and cynical.
All-time favorite?
Yes, Bert.
Wow. That's
Any sport, anything, all-time favorite.
Maybe Marv Albert in his heyday.
I agree with Mark completely on that one.
How about if I give you Marty Glickman?
Yeah.
Marty Glickman was terrific.
Yeah.
No question.
Marv Albert is never, even now he's in his middle late 70s, always managed never to annoy me.
But baseball, if you're talking just baseball,
yeah,
that's a little difficult. I don't know. There's a lot of really good ones. When I was a kid, I just remember Mel Allen.
Yeah, Scully is my favorite, even though I don't get to hear him very often here.
Yeah, Rizzuto was good. Joe Garagiola was good. The guys that were entertaining, I think are the best ones. I don't know.
We had Red Barber, who was very good.
Red Barber.
Obviously.
I like Bill White when he did the Yankee games.
You can't have superstars doing announcing, because I remember Tom Seaver did a year or two with the Mets, and they had some left-hander out there, the Mets, and this guy couldn't throw a fastball. He's trying to throw fastballs. He's in a club. And Seaver said, "Who's this guy think he is, Koufax or Carlton?" Says he doesn't have a fastball good enough to get past. He said, "There's the superstars, hold everybody to such a high standard that they have that they find it very hard to talk about players who are less effective than they were, which are 99% of them."
Same with managers and coaches, too.
Yeah.
Guys like Roger Hornsby, I remember, an original Met coach.
Yeah, I put down about Hornsby. He says the greatest right-handed hitter of all time and one of the most miserable human beings ever played in Major League Baseball.
Well, I don't know.
He was. Yeah, he was. He made. I put down one picture of him that he made Ty Cobb seem like a saint. That's saying an awful lot.
Yeah. Hey, Mazel Tov. We don't no hitter tonight. Granderson just got a single. In the bottom of the seventh inning.
I mean, they'll pull Talley in after this inning and bring in one of the Austin squad to pitch the last two innings. So the Mets aren't dead yet.
It's still 2-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe nice shot by Cespedes here, and
they take Talley in out. They bring in any of these relievers, they'll find a way to lose.
Okay.
That's what they do. That's what they've been doing all year.
Let's put out a good word for Terry Collins, who got a big scare going to the hospital this week, and he seems.
Yeah, he's back. He, I guess, basically is dehydration. He said he had like dizziness, so they kept him. They kept him in observation overnight. And
they said on the radio today everything came back negative.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. So much of it is
5-4-3 Cespedes.
Oh, nice. Like I say, the other day when there was a barn burner going on between the Pirates and the Mets, and the Pirates won, I said, at least Alan is happy tonight.
Well, look, they've had a lot in their history where they have years like they had last year, followed by years that were very mediocre. I mean, in 1961, if they had won the World Series, Vernon Lowe got a sore arm immediately and won 3 games. And they wound up after winning the World Series, they wound up in 6th place. And they've done this over the last 50 years a number of times where they've had very, very good years, followed by bad years. So, when they have years like that, I root for things like Clemente winning the batting title to individuals to do very well, certain individuals to do very well, because I knew the team wasn't going to do anything.
Okay.
But those 20 years of losing were very, very hard to take.
I think I hear the music coming on, which means that we're over. So listen up. Here's some music. There it is. Thank you, guys. This is a terrific thing we got going. I enjoy your company, both.
Thank you, and thank you, Marty, and I hope the Mets win every game they play after this series is over.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Alan. We'll see.
And I say the same thing. As long as, and I'll tell you, I can say that and mean it because I had a buddy. His name was Sid Thrift. I met him when I was the Tops representative in the minors. And he was out of baseball at that time, and he was there. He was in Modesto to see his kid, Jim Thrift, who later became a coach in the minors with the Mets. He was playing in Modesto, and we got to spend 2 or 3 days hanging, watching his kid, me doing my Tops trip, and 2 or 3 years later, he becomes the general manager of the Pirates. And I talked to him and I said, it's going to be very, very difficult to root for you because you know I'm such a fanatical Met fan. And he said the same thing. He says, just give me a little piece of your rooting. He says, when they're not playing the Mets, root for them. And that's exactly what you're doing. So I feel like everything's complete. I'll give them some good vibes when they're not playing the Mets for you, Alan.
I've told all my friends who are Mets fans the same thing. That as far as I'm concerned, they can go 156-6 as long as there's 6 of the Pirates.
Beautiful. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll talk very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed this immensely, guys. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Hang in there, everybody. Be well.
Bye-bye.